just that.
This?
That is saying that the benefits are, that just there's no monetary benefit, but it's enriching. The only benefit being that we're able to gather information on the community, and that and just so that we can use the information that we gather.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a release just so that we can use, also so we can use the audio, whatever audio we gather, and pictures that you share with us.
Let's see, 6/14?
No,
It's the
today?
21st.
21st?
Yeah. Officially summer.
Officially summer.
Nobody deserves that.
Okay.
Oh, and then just the back, this is just...
Same thing?
That's the audio, or the visual release of letting us use pictures.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I'll fill this out with you guys. Are you okay with that? Okay. Well, I can do it, I guess.
Okay, we can do it together. Two people can do it.
I'll do it if I can.
Oh, just out here.
Yep. So you have to.
Already
Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, you guys just tell me what you need.
Well, first, start off, just like to say thank you for doing the interview with us. And then, first, before we really get down into the in-depth part of the interview, just to, get a little background information, your name, date of birth, where you were born, and that sort of stuff. So, if you could say your name just for...
Yeah, my name is Muneer Bahauddeen. I was born in Chicago in 1949. I was educated at the School of the Art Institute. I left there and moved to Milwaukee in 1990. Yeah.
And what are your parents?
Well, my mother was basically for the developing years of our lives, just a domestic engineer, meaning just a mom.
Most important job there is.
Absolutely. My father came to Chicago as a welder. He then went to night school and got his education and his business degree and opened up a real estate office. So he passed away in '84. And yeah, that's pretty much about 83 or so. He closed his business and came down with sickness and passed. My mother's still alive. She's 91 next month. Yeah.
Did you have any siblings?
I have 2 brothers and a sister. Yeah. I have a bronchial condition. So I was actually raised in Michigan, away from my brothers and sisters. My mother was actually born in Bay City, Michigan. So that's how it was possible for me to go to Michigan. The air was cleaner. So from 3rd grade through junior college, I lived in Bay City, Michigan. And from then I went into Chicago, the Art Institute of Chicago. Graduated, married, and came here. Yeah.
And married who? What is?
My wife, I met her at the Art Institute. She was a visiting artist also from Cornell University. She was a professor there of art at Cornell.
Wow.
And she took a sabbatical, came to Chicago. She had just been given a commission to design a piece for the Atlanta airport, which was just opening up around that time. And while teaching, at the Art Institute, someone recommended that I was a good technical person. We introduced ourselves, and it just kind of took off from there. Yeah.
So you went to the Art Institute of Chicago. What did you study? What did you?
Yeah, I focused on ceramics and lithography. And it just so ends up that after leaving school, ceramics has provided me with a good source of income. I got one major commission. My first commission for $36,000 was for a public sculpture, which then moved me into other public pieces. I did a public piece here in Milwaukee. On a bridge, I did another public piece in a private school, and I did another public piece, for Frederick Hospital. I like working large like that, but when you can't always get that, you have to do what you can. So I worked with 2 organizations to keep income coming in. One was Arts at Large, and the other was Express Yourself Milwaukee. Yeah.
So you actually got to work with art. You always had the possibility to.
Since 1979, I have only had art-related work. I was either guarding art, I was either hanging it in museums, because that's how I got through school. I worked at the museum of the Art Institute. So a really, really rich and wonderful experience, In my junior years in college, I studied art history, So then I go to the Art Institute just to get a job. And I got a job as a guard. And my the first gallery on the first day that they assigned me to, I'm looking at works I saw in books and slides. And it's like, wow, this is...
That is good.
It was really awesome, really awesome. And it was just one gallery after another, one gallery after another. One day I would be in the American Arts wing. One day I would be in decorative arts. One day I would be in European arts. It's a massive museum. It was then, and it's even more now. But eventually, on the employee bulletin board, there was an opening for a preparator. And the director of that department approached me and said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Hell yeah." So now I left from being a guard to becoming a preparator. Those are the ones who prepare the galleries, who take the work off the walls. They either take the work to storage, they take it to restoration, or they take it back to our department where we pack it, which means we had to design the crates that could withstand hyperstatic shock, when you drop it. So most of the crates were lined with polystyrene and foam, and it was really a very fascinating job. I went into some of the wealthiest homes in Chicago, where I saw more work that I had been studying hanging on people's walls. It was just very rich experience, and after leaving there, we moved to Milwaukee.
What brought you?
Work. My wife got a job teaching at a private school, and I came. We had 2 kids. So one day she called and said, the art teacher here didn't show up. Would you be interested? So I said, okay. And I went, and the principal and other people came in and started observing me. And after the class was over, right there on the spot, they offered me a job as a teacher. So I taught there, and I'm thinking, oh boy, okay, here we go. We're both working here. We'll bank one check and live off the other check. But my wife decided, she really hated being there. So she wanted to go back and finish. So I worked, and she went and finished her PhD work in art education. She graduated from UWM here in PhD in art education. And then she moved on. I said, I think I'm a hang,
What school?
That what?
That you both worked at.
University School of Milwaukee, which is called that, but it's in River Hills, which is like a suburb of here.
Yes.
So we parted amicably, and are still friends today, We had 2 children. I have one now in Japan and one in Los Angeles. We raised them not too far from here.
Where was that?
It's in another community. Oh, what is that community called? It'll come to me in a minute. But this is 33rd and 34th, and we were over at 27th, around State. Something Heights. It'll come to me.
Did one of them follow the arts too?
Well, my daughter is pursuing a film acting and teaching, while she's doing that out in Los Angeles. My son is teaching English as a second language, but he's always had this thing for alternative healing, and so he's dealing with unconventional medicines. But last week we talked, he has picked up this class making shoes. So he's under this shoe master making shoes in Japan on his free time, So yeah, kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's creative too.
Yeah. And of course, last Sunday was Father's Day, so I heard from them both. And my ex, they all seem to be doing well.
So you guys are friends.
Yeah, in fact, she does, monetarily speaking, so much better than I do. So much so that she came here in March. She stayed here because she was out looking for real estate. That's how well she does, But yeah. That's spiritually, it's more easy to navigate your life when you don't have that kind of stuff on you. If you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I agree.
Yeah.
So since you came to Milwaukee, was over on 27th and State, was that the first place you lived, or right when you moved? Or?
No, when we first, it was more like 86 in Good Hope, because that was very close to University School. A very different community. Coming out of Chicago, where you're really connected with Afrocentric culture, and where you're really connected with one thing I love doing is going to hear jazz a lot, live jazz, easily accessible. Moving out to Good Hope, there was nothing. And every time we wanted to do something that was culturally succinct to us, we had to come back into Milwaukee. That was Milwaukee too, but to me, like, when you get back down here, that's like being in Milwaukee, So eventually we moved from Good Hope to 29th Street, 29th and, yeah. Yeah, we've kind of been in the city ever since then, yeah.
But if you had to say Milwaukee is your home, or would you say it's Michigan or maybe Chicago?
No, yeah, Milwaukee is my home right now.
It's where
yeah,
you found your place.
It is. I feel attached here, even though I have dear friends I grew up with in Bay City, Michigan, one of which I stay in touch with. My brothers are outside of Chicago, but I still call it Chicago. One is in Aurora, one is in Maywood, which is like going from here to Tulsa, if you know what I mean, in terms of the distance and the immediacy of it all. But yeah, Milwaukee, I like Milwaukee. I mean, like, if you get into politics in Chicago and all of the craziness about accessibility to the mayor and to your alderman, how crazy it is, but you do it. And then when you come here, it's like nothing, man. You can connect. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think people who are politicized in Chicago and then come to Milwaukee, it's very easy to navigate, to get stuff done and to know people. And
things are simpler.
They are, and it's ideal. Being raised in a very small town in Bay City, coming back to Chicago, then moving here, it's the best. It's like a big Bay City.
It's like the best of both worlds.
It kind of so, yeah. But I was not here in the 60s. And it was a different kind of energy, a similar energy that I saw in Michigan and in Illinois in the 60s. Black awareness, revolution, on various scales, but most of all, a sense of cultural enlightenment and awakening that occurred that I think drives a lot of my art today and drives a lot of why I feel community is important. We struggle as a people dealing with absentee landlords in the 60s. When jobs opened up in the 70s and 80s, money became available. The first thing we did, unfortunately, is we left the community. So this is now an arena for absentee landlords and community vultures of various types, if you understand, profiteers, people who just really want the rent. They're really not that high in number, but their impact is very pronounced, for the lack of a better term. So you walk through, people coming from different communities or different cities are told to stay away from these areas or drive through them real quick. They don't really get to know the people. And there are a lot of intelligent, wonderful people down here. Even city officials write it off. And it's unless you have the ability to connect with your alderman and say, hey, this is not going on, and 80 to 90% of the people in our community don't like what's going on, and we need you to change that. That is starting to happen on a small scale down here. But we still have a lot of transient people, and that's because poverty does not allow them to purchase homes. And when you don't own that home, what happens is you don't have the kind of interest in keeping it up. And as a result of that, stuff starts to become dilapidated, and people drive through not knowing the story. It's just I need to get through this. I don't want to know. And they go on about their lives. But there's a renaissance going on down here. It's in its infancy. There's a renaissance going on in the whole city, but when you bring that energy down here, it's in its infancy right now, but you can feel it among other neighbors, well, I think we'll do a farmer's market. Yeah, let's do that. I got this. You'll bring that, and we get a farmer's market across the street, this organization called Express Yourself Milwaukee, who provides an artistic service. It's art therapy based. They provide an artistic service for children who are at risk, and that clientele is predominantly youth that are incarcerated. They chose to put their office and space down in this community. So it slowly evolves, and bit by bit you start to see the changes, and I think that's pretty much why I guess I'm down here right now,
It's all that energy and activity of people that really makes the neighborhood for you. That's kind of what I'm doing.
That plus knowing that geographically speaking, in a car, I'm 5 minutes from downtown, and downtown is really starting to rejuvenate, which means people who have wealth and income are actually now, your speculative developers are starting to look at this, And what does that mean? That means 5 or 10 of them can come together and buy up 7 or 8 houses. They can do these really slick things to these houses, pour all this money into floor tile appliances, drive the tax base up. The poor who are here, who are barely making it, who can barely pay those taxes, can no longer pay their taxes. They lose their homes. And those who started that development initiative buy those homes. Eventually, you have this gradual change of not only people, but culture and mindset that has really been going on for a very long time, But this is where I choose to be. It's cosmopolitan enough for me, However, this is, when one looks at it really closely, this is, I think one of my biggest concerns is that it's a food desert. I like eating interesting kinds of foods, and I personally have to travel anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to go to exciting places to eat. And unfortunately, that also means, it used to mean, just basic groceries as well. Just straight down Lisbon now. Lisbon turns into Walnut. Walnut turns into Pleasant. There's a new Thyme Market, I think it's called, that just opened up. It seems to be a cross between Whole Foods and Outpost, well-stocked. So, you go in, everybody's treating you well. I think that's that new store enthusiasm that'll wear off probably by Christmas. What do you want? I don't know. I hope not, because it's very lovely to go in there right now.
Is that the on water? The new? Is that
Yes.
That is a very cool.
Yeah, Pleasant and Water. Yeah, this street turns into Pleasant. It's Lisbon now. You get down to 24th Street, it turns into Walnut. You get down to King Drive, and it becomes Pleasant. And you keep down Pleasant till you get to Water. Yeah, part of a new development, We got a lot of land here, and I sit in on business meetings listening to people talk about, well, we can do this and we can do that. I'm saying, well, what did you see for this community? Does it, if you want to control what's going on here, how do you visualize what comes in here? Nobody has answers for that. They just want to see new buildings with mixed use, and that to me doesn't have a lot of character, community character, or personality. It's just something a few developers came in because they had money. They made it, they got in, they got out, and if it's mixed use, it's no big deal because the rents up above the commercial carry the note, if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. This is not that far from downtown. A lot of potential stuff is starting to happen. But it all happens at a snail's pace, especially in poor neighborhoods. And your city government is going to say, well, you only have 30 people in the community, and they're only paying $30 worth of taxes. And that's all that we can put back into that community is $30 worth of service. $30 is a hypothetical number, of course, but that's the justification for not doing a lot down in communities like this.
So with the developers, you were talking about their plans and all that. If you had the choice, what would your ideal situation moving forward with the community? What do you see?
An artisan's row. I would love to attract candle makers. I would love to attract candy makers We've already got bread and chocolate makers here. I would love to attract people who made shoes just from 27th Street back to 45th, artisans of all kind. I would love to see this be that kind of a community. Artisans are different than artists to me. Artists are the ones who have these tools and all this equipment. Hey, I ain't moving. Which means they're going to stay there and they're going to fight for that community because they're developing. Artists, well, yeah, this is my canvas, here's my paintbrushes, I'm out. But people who are investing in tools and equipment and take time to clean up their streets and their yards, paint their houses because they have a artisan community that probably works with them, come together, roast a pig, you know what I'm saying? Just artisans do that more so, I think, than artists do. Artists can be in that, but artisans are the alchemists, and they're the ones who mix stuff up and that didn't work. Let me try. Blows up in their. No, but
They don't give up.
they don't. So that's the kind of energy and spirit and the kind of business I would love to see in this area. And I would love it to come from people who are back on this side of Lisbon and people who are back on that side of Lisbon who have those skills. They probably don't. I don't know. But if they had those skills, they could bring that to Lisbon to develop this, as opposed to people coming from Connecticut and people coming from Boston. Well, I came from Chicago, but I mean, the point being is an artisans-driven community driven by people in the community as opposed to New York corporate absentee entities. I would love to see, there was a project in Chicago several years ago where the city commissioned artists to sculpt these fantastical bus stop benches, so to have designer bus benches and designer bus stops from 27th to 45th, yes. I would love to see this evolve. The farmer's market, there's an alley behind that building, and then there's an alley that goes, I don't know if you've seen it. I'll walk you through that at some point. But it is, if one has ever been to other countries where they have these really vibrant, funky markets, that alley has that potential. What you do is you take the homeowners and convince them that take your yard, divide it into 10 sections, and invite 10 vendors and charge each vendor $60, or whatever. If you've got a garage, take your garage, clean it out, and bring in 2 vendors, and charge them $80 or whatever. A lot can bring in 10 vendors in one lot per summer. That's $600, however he or she, the house owner or homeowner, would want to do. This whole alley then becomes lights and culture and smells and fabric. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of thing. So we're talking about this becoming a tourist destination. That's the kind of, and the income generated from that goes immediately to the homes of the homeowners of the properties,
Right. And that's why it's so important that you're getting the people from the community to be those people coming in and doing that.
Grassroots, yeah. And that's rather lofty, But when you break it down, you know that, okay, we'll do this first, farmer's market, and just keep that going. And look at the alley being phase 2 or phase 3, you know. But the challenge is you have ideas as an architect. And they exist flawlessly in our minds, you know. And then when you say, okay, I need you to build this, and you come in contact with an engineer who has a personality problem with, you know what I'm saying? Or another interior designer who says, you know, yeah. So it's that human element that I'm basically speaking of that has to come into play. And at some point, you have to work together to make that happen, because we cannot design and build and have it manifest in a vacuum, if you know what I mean. There's a lot right behind us. There is an artist. I would love to see it reserved for public performances. This one artist came to me with this idea of doing this performance that was a mashup between Mad Max and Burning Man. I mean, this is a poem, you know, that we would be doing out there. We sat down, we did all the drawings, and now he's in the process of selling this to schools, because he's trying to get all these partners and show the educational components, and then have them all performing out here with the lights, with the pyrotech, you know. I guess eventually but he's got to drive it, you know, and I hope he does. Those are the kinds of things I'd like to see. Art-related, art-driven kinds of activities. And a lot of it coming out of the flanking two communities. This is a very rich Burmese, Senegalese, Hmong, Latino community over here, a very Hmong African American over here. A lot of them don't even know that they're here. This then becomes that ground, that neutral kind of ground where this melting pot of ideas and culture can come into existence, you know. So those are the kinds of things if I had, yeah, I would do, yeah.
So if you were to describe the neighborhood, you know, you talked about either side being, you know, vastly different. Would you still, you know, refer to them both as one, or like how would you go about? Are they two distinct areas? Are they different parts of a whole? Or?
I think they're different parts of a whole, but I think cultural creatives are people who have the vision of what America really is. I mean, you have television dictating what you have politicians dictating, you know, but people who are actually working in communities with different cultures, trying to respect their each culture's priorities, or spiritual and political, for the lack of a better term, is where America is, you know, and is where America is going. You know, America has not come into existence yet. It's still an ideal, you know, because it is so strongly segregated, and we, all cultures, are very comfortable in our segregation. Well, yeah, they're over there. I'm not going over there. No, I don't, you know. And breaking that down and moving gently and respectfully toward others is kind of important, you know. Yeah. Just turn this on.
So now, kind of jumping to your space here. What drew you to this?
Well,
Find this house.
let's see here. I was living at the home my wife and we went through our divorce. I got the house, but she was able to keep this enormous retirement that she earned. I didn't want it. I mean, in the state of Wisconsin, when you divorce, irregardless to what you brought, everything gets dropped to the table and everything gets cut in half. And I said, well, you know, I didn't make any of that. Why don't you just keep that? Just give me the house. She said, cool. So after I sold, I moved into a big studio, 3,000 square feet, and the gentleman couldn't keep the power on. And I had, of course, electric kilns and other machinery. I had to move. I moved to another place, and that gentleman couldn't keep the power on. So I was out doing something one day, and somebody said, well, let's... And it was just like right over there, because I was where my studio was. And the gentleman said, let's go have soup. I says, well, okay. I said, well, where are you going to go? He said, just right over here on 34th. I said, 34th in Lisbon? There's nothing over there. And he brought me to Amaranth. Yeah.
So your first contact with this area was...
Yes. Yeah.
Street.
And... Yeah, and I went in and I was fascinated that that it had been there. It had already been there for 4 years. So I started coming every day, and he had a bulletin board up, and he was announcing an apartment above the bakery for rent. And I asked him, and he said, yes, it's available. So all my livable stuff that was in the studio, I brought there, and I stayed in that bakery, pardon me, in the apartment above the bakery. I had the whole upstairs. He's got 2 businesses up there and there now. I stayed up in there for 2 years. And he purchased this property and was just wondering what to do with it. And it's one of those January moments. Snow's coming down, nobody's coming in. We're both sitting at the tables looking out the window. And he says, you know, if I purchased that, would you move into it for what you're paying rent upstairs? I said, hell yes. So he went on. By August, everything had closed. I came in, put in these floors, put in the electrical, sanded the floors upstairs, put in electrical upstairs. What else did we do? Oh, this was all boarded up. Okay, so we found the door, put in the glass. Then I had to buy cement board and fireproof that corner so I could put my kiln in. And I've been here now I've been here a good 8 years now, or at least moving into my 8th year here, you know. And he's a good landlord, you know. I'm a living and working artist, and I have to get out here and hustle for rent, and when it doesn't come, he's patient. You know, he's never hounded me about it, but 90% of the time I'm on time with my rent, if you know what I'm saying. And unfortunately, that's pretty much all I can do. You know, I can do my rent. I keep my phone on, my utilities, a little gas in the car, and food. You know, and then when I get a job at a school where I'm going in as a visiting artist, that may require this amount of glaze and this amount of glaze. Well, I may get one more bag of clay for myself and one more jar of glaze for myself. And then I get all the scraps of what's left over, and I can then, you know, on my free time, make my own work, then sell. There's no guarantee of a sale, if you know what I'm saying. But when I do, then it takes a little pressure off of me to make sure that I get the rent.
How would you describe your work?
A lot of my work is driven by symbolism. I deal with Ifa, which is a Nigerian earth-based religion. Some people call it Vodun, some people call it Condamble, some people call it Orisha. I deal with symbols from the country of Ghana called Adinkra. I deal with some Asian I Ching concepts. And I like doing that. Even though coming out of the Art Institute, you did have the life study. I'm not that fascinated as much by drawing and painting the body. I think there was this famous African artist who once said, who was being interviewed, and he says, "Well, why don't you make the face more realistic?" He says, "God has already done that so good. I can do it, so I'm going to do something, you know." So that's what I kind of fall back on. I coming out of the Art Institute and having studied with professors who were abstract expressionists, that's where a lot of my work tends to go toward. It's quite abstract. I'm not doing what a lot of other artists are doing, you know. Yeah, it's pretty much. It's always kind of cultural based, and it's always kind of spiritual and or religious based. Sometimes it's politically based, you know, or a lot of times it's politically based.
So would you do all this work with different religious symbols and everything. So would you consider yourself a religious person?
No.
No?
No. A spiritual person, yes.
Okay.
But religious, no.
How would you define that difference?
For me, religion is spirituality with a political agenda. That's pretty much how I would. That's what religion is, you know. A collective group of people who have the same agenda to collect their money and take it to the state government and say, we need you to, you know, that's...
Yes. So with all your work, upstairs and everything, you did an awesome job. If there was anything else that you could do, additionally, what would it be?
Personally, I think I would like to time travel, but that hasn't been invented yet. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, really, I would love to try and. I'd love to be able to go back and forth, you know. I think I'd love to, but because I can't do that, you know that I think developing ideas or seeing a lot of the kinds of sculptural things I do that are really small become architectural structures or cities. I think you and I were talking about Paolo Soleri, who was an architect of the 60s and 50s, who built Arco Sante out in Scottsdale, Arizona. This interesting concept of mounding up sand and then pouring a concrete slab and then excavating the sand and having structures, which makes so much sense to me. And I'm thinking if we built like that, especially in tornado alleys, how much more wind resistant that would be to these boxes that we build that are get blown down. Yeah, I don't know. Travel, I don't know. I think I would like to travel to some countries, you know, Brazil being one of them, you know. I think I'd love to go just to Barcelona in Spain just to see Gaudi's work. Several places on the continent of Africa. I think I'd like to go to Tibet. In terms of, if I had the dollars and could really do what I want, I would I would move out of this, take upstairs, and convert it into a artist residency, visiting artist residence space, where the artists lived upstairs, with 2 bedrooms. There could be 2 artists. They could be of the same medium. All this stuff would get cleared out. So if he or she was a painter, they could conduct classes in here with the community kids and people, and then have some kind of an exhibition at the end of their residency, be it a year, and then 2 other artists move in. Pardon me, or one other artist move in. Yeah, I could see doing that. It'd be fun. Taking a complete city block, Lisbon, 34th, whatever that street is, and then back up to 33rd, and all the land in their backyards, scraping that off, making that just community space, and digging down deep and sinking a cistern of sorts that could collect all the water from all the houses. You could do the pump, you know what I'm saying, to make that happen. Cover that back up and pump that water out onto a backyard, a massive backyard that grow food for themselves and, for the community. I mean, I did drawings of that at one time, so I think about stuff like that a lot, all the fences that are used to, this is my space and this is my space, those fences would then get turned out so that if these are the homes, the fences go between the houses instead of, you know what I'm saying? And doing that in a variety of different ways. I think about that kind of stuff a lot,
The urban agriculture.
It's a urban agricultural mindset. Yeah, I think something very necessary is going to be needed because, unfortunately, a lot of kids think ketchup comes from bottles. That's tragic.
Yes.
Yeah.
thankfully there's a lot of people that are really interested in studying that sort of.
Not enough, I don't
That-
think.
that's like one of the hot things that people are really getting into, which is cool. So there's a lot of people interested within school right now.
Yeah.
Just working their way up.
Yeah.
I actually went to Cuba to study the urban agriculture in Havana because it's one of the best in the world in that city.
Yeah, there's an organization here called Walnut Way who went to Cuba last year and then year before last. And I was almost to the point of begging them to let me go. And now Obama has opened this up and I don't need you. So I can go myself.
I can take advantage of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And for that reason, also the spiritual and religious stuff that I observe has a connection in Matanzas, which is a small town outside of Havana. Matanzas was one of those cities that slaves escaped, like in Bahia, and created self-government, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd love to see Matanzas. Yes, if urban agriculture became as popular as Kanye West and, you know what I'm saying? That kind of popularity, instead of thinking about dancing, they're thinking about planting. You know what I mean? Wouldn't that be so much wonderful?
Yeah, it would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
It'd be all right.
yeah.
Could you tell us more about what you know about this house? What did you find out when you got here?
Well, when we moved in, just before we moved in, it was a brothel. And I know that based on who I would see pull up in cars and the kind of cars, I'm sitting up in the windows looking over, and they're up in there 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and then they're gone. So after they bought it, of course, all that stopped. But then we started hearing that at one time this was a candy shop. So I'm thinking somebody's just bought candy and from something like Sam's in crates and then putting it on shelves and selling it to kids. But we do know when you look and you see these gold walls, a church bought this and had turned this, they had the intention of turning this into a wedding chapel where people, they didn't come for service, they just came to get married, and they would have their reception and everything here. The minister who had that idea owned the place, but she was struggling with finances and lost it. So I know that much. Then one winter, I'm sitting having coffee across the street, and this woman approaches me, and she says, you know, my grandfather used to own this building. In fact, he had it built, and he was a jeweler. So what you have here are documents of the inside and the outside of the building. These are examples. I think these would be like business cards or brochures, the equivalent thereof for that time period. And when they sent out products, they could be mirrors, watches, etc. This was the kind of stuff they sent stuff out in. This was one of those boxes. And normally on the on the jewelry. They had, like we have tags on clothes today. They had those kinds of things on them to indicate where they came from, So she comes in and she tells me stories about her grandfather. This is
Here?
This is the grandfather. Yes.
Joseph.
Schaefer or something like that. Yeah.
Probably on German.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. This was very German right up until this community was very German right up until about 66 or so, when there was a big cultural revolution and African Americans could not, in the 60s and before, they could not come past 27th Street in the night. They get beat up. During the day they could, because they were traveling from point A to point B to business or work. But yeah.
Can I make a copy of this?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But she proceeded to tell me about her grandfather who built this, her father who lived up in the attic, and the different things they saw the building going through, She gave me these documents, and I was most grateful. Then 2 summers ago, a gentleman came here, an American Indian. That's his name. And he proceeded to tell me the story of this AIM, American Indian movement, which was very strong in the 60s. That started right here. AIM got national recognition for its political views, its stance on Indian rights and reservations and violations of treaties. Big press. The press in the 60s that AIM was getting would be the equivalent to the kind of press that Donald Trump is getting, just to give you a sense of the kind of energy that was around. That organization started right here in this building. And this gentleman, whose parents started it, used to live upstairs. And this is he's American in Ernest Steve. He's American and a big, tall guy who lives and works in Washington, D.C. right now. He comes home, he says, every summer and drives by, he and his wife on bikes, they come by. This is the area they grew up in. Then, of course, I moved in. And I'm not giving this to you in any kind of chronological order, but it's been very productive for me to be here. It's been very peaceful, in spite of what you see going on outside. The only complaint I have ever is about the fire engines and police sirens and the boom boxes in cars. Aside from that, I think 3 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago, the streets were really bad, and they put in new sidewalks and curbs. But before that, it was like just tires hitting making these big noises, this is so much more quiet.
I mean, it seems like there are people walking the street a little bit more.
Well, yeah, this has David could probably tell you more, but this has a reputation of being one of those red districts, green, brothel districts, shady, you know what I'm saying? And residual elements of that still exist. You have a lot of, you see some people here now, but 3 and 4 in the morning, Johns come through and they're very aggressive, But everybody you see walking here is not of that ilk. You see family and children. And to me, I think they're going either to the south into homes or to the north into homes or coming from that. Yeah. And this is still a major bus line, too, so get people coming off and getting on.
What happened to the window?
I don't know. It was a big storm the night that got broke. Stuff was flying everywhere. I'm thinking something hit it because when I came down the next day, there was nothing like a stone inside and there was nothing outside. Could have been somebody just doing that. I don't know. But it happened in like November, early November. I didn't have the dollars to get it fixed. So I did have enough to buy 2 pieces of plastic and a bolt. And so I sandwiched it, and sealed it off and to keep water from coming in during the winter.
Yeah.
And some people actually thought it was a piece of art. So I'm leaving it.
To be honest, when I first saw it, I thought it
Really?
I thought it was like on purpose.
Abstract, yeah.
Yeah, it's a new thing, huh?
Yeah. So, I think I'll just say, yeah, that's an artistic statement.
Did you put it in the backsplash upstairs in the kitchen? Did you do that?
Yeah, 1 or 2 of them are handmade tiles, but the majority of those tiles came from Habitat Restore.
Oh,
Yeah. And they just had the small beige square ones. They just had a ton of them. So I took them. And then I started breaking the wall up. And now I kind of regret because if I had this space, I would take all that down and open that wall up so you're looking through into the dining room. Mm-hmm. Where my sofa is really the dining room. Yeah. But if you notice the canvas I have hanging in the doorways, I drop that in the wintertime. And then I just have to heat that space. Yep. So the big living room up front here, since I've been here, I've never turned on the heater in there. I've never turned on the heater in the kitchen. And I've never turned on the heater in the bathroom.
How do you do in the winter?
Because, once again, the center room is pretty much, that heater runs all the time. And the heater in my bedroom runs all the time. Centralized heating system, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That enables me to
use it more efficiently.
Yeah. And then I go into the kitchen. I'm only in there long enough to cook, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So you turn on the stove, that heats up the space. Yep. Yeah. And of course, the canvas is what's actually drop cloth, canvas drop cloth for painters. You can buy them for like $22 at Home Depot. And I just took advantage of them. But yeah, that's how I would open that up. The floor in the kitchen is just horrible. As much as I scrub it, it'll just, I think I need to. Well, Dave needs to. I'm not putting any more money into it.
You put a lot of.
I think I would help him put it in, but I would not purchase the materials for it. When we were moving in, the plumber spilled all this dye on the floor, and it chemically bonded. And I didn't think anything of it because we were all working. It's messy. I'm thinking, yeah, and it didn't. So
God.
it's like, well, I'm not gonna. Yeah,
That's unfortunate.
it is, but
But it is.
I don't have that much company anyway. So,
Well, your space is incredible. All the woodwork.
isn't it? Yeah, I think it's Craftsman's. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's a Craftsman style home. Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
Upstairs, a lot of it, you had some art that we could tell was yours, but is all of it up there yours? Or
No.
did you-
The black and white prints that were hanging on the wall, that's a series that I bought from this artist. Her name is Evelyn Terry. And then I have work from my wife, my ex, I should say my children's mother. My ex is up there. I have work from, a printmaker out of Philadelphia. There's a big mirror up there that my daughter bought from Navy Pier or something like that. Yeah, all that stuff on the floor near leaning up, that's my daughter's stuff. And she lived here and then moved to California. They moved into this super small apartment and they couldn't take everything. So can I leave this here? It'll only be here in a week. She's been gone 3 years. So
Children.
I'm telling you.
All the same.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
all the same.
yep.
I feel like I had that same conversation with my parents. Oh yeah, it'll be gone.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite space in this whole building?
My favorite space?
Yeah, where would
It'd be
where's
down here.
Here.
It'd be down here. Yeah. I mean, when I go upstairs, it's like, that's all I want to do. But that gives me a sense that I have earned this rest, and I worked hard that day. But the whole idea of being able to get up and come down here and then do something, or just come down here and think about stuff. And then my next favorite space would be out in the back. And then I guess the next favorite space would probably be up there in front of the sofa, on the sofa in front of the television. But that's a space that I'm really not kind of engaged in. I'm just like right there. So I don't.
Yeah.
This cake.
Yes.
This cake when you're tired.
Yes,
when you've
yes.
done a lot.
Yeah.
You just need to get away.
Yeah, but this would be my favorite. This would be my favorite. I mean, like, there was nothing in here. Oh, there was a wall here. We tore that out.
Oh.
And I went to the Restore once again, and I bought these 5 doors, 1, 2, 3, 4 doors. I cut them down, created that division space. That's where when I cut and saw, the dust stays pretty much over in there. Excuse me. These walls were already like this when I moved in. I said, Dave, don't touch the walls. But I put in that little shelf unit. I put in these 2 racks. Once again, at the Navy, the Restore, Home Depot Restore, I went in one day and these flat files were there, so I jumped on those. That was. these two tables, when I was teaching at university school, which is a very well-endowed school. Some of the wealthiest children go there, you know. They decided to change out the whole dining room. And these were lunch tables, you know, these two. So we got them and we took them home, and they've been studio tables ever since.
I like your space. The choice of making the three tables like separating, because you have like three different spaces.
Mm-hmm. When I do,
I really like that.
thank you. When I do workshops, I usually only do like 10 participants at a time. Even if it's a large group, then we'll just do 3 sessions or something like that. That way I can put 5 people at a table, sometimes 6 people at a table. And all this is the materials they're using to do what they do. So if it's clay, it's extra clay. There's brushes, there's knives, there's texturizing tools, there's paint. And this is where they work. And then I'm always playing jazz. It's a music that is really one of America's true arts, first arts. And a lot of the participants, the youth who come through here, don't hear that as much, you know. So just to play with them, sometimes I'll take a $50 bill and I'll put it on the table, and then I'll put on John Coltrane. And I say, anybody who can tell me who this is, you can have the money. Nobody ever gets it. Never gets it. Kanye West!
No.
What do they say? Who's the Snoop Dogg? You know, I mean, they just think, and I'm just laughing inside. You know,
They actually say that?
they say names like that. Yes, because think about it. The majority of the kids these days aren't really listening to a lot of instrumentals.
Yeah.
It's a lot of rap, a lot of lyrics. You know.
I really like soundtrack
Uh-huh.
on the background music of the movies, you know. With
Yes.
instrumental.
Uh-huh.
My friends look at me like I'm some kind of alien, you know, because I listen to it, you know, those on classical music.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it.
I do too.
There's no lyrics or stuff, but I love it, and
And
people just don't get it.
Yeah, every time you turn it on, you can create your own story. You know what I'm saying? Without somebody dictating. Yes, I hear you singing the blues, and that's an okay thing. But I got my own blues to sing about. So let me, in my head, along with the music, create my own story. But yeah, they don't get it. There was this one kid. I had a $20 bill, and I said, if you can guess who it is. And they took their phone and they... John Coltrane! And I looked at the phone and I said, no. But I didn't know then. They had an Android phone. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, and there's an app who you just put it next to the song.
Right.
And it identifies. And
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, this person... She doesn't know who John Coltrane. How did she do that? But yeah, so this is where I conduct workshops with kids, and I've conducted many in here. Sometimes income has not come in, and a workshop like that just like right on time.
How often do you do those workshops?
I could probably do them more often than I do, but at my age, one of the most fascinating things is living within my means, which does not stress me out. you know. And over a period of time, I don't have this desire to go, be, you know, spin. So as a result of that, I don't have to do as much work, if you know what I mean.
Sounds great.
But when it does come in, it's good. I can live off of it for a while, and then I can either live off it to the max, or when I'm halfway through what I've earned, I can go hunting again. And that's usually what I do. So I've got stuff lined up now for July. I've got stuff lined up now for August, you know. It'll be little pieces of dollars, you know what I'm saying? But it's this nice kind of balance and flow. It's not big money, you know, just to sustain what I do, you know. Yeah.
So did you also build the work tables out in the back there?
I did, just scrap material. I needed places to do stuff. And those are the second tables. The first I just put wood out, and the winter, the rot, you know. So this time I put new tops on, and I've got that cement board on top. Now I may run down to the Restore again and try to find a bunch of old inexpensive floor tiles, because if one looks really close at the cement board, it's cracking, which means water gets in, which means water freezes, which means freeze and thaw, the crack thing happens, and I'm replacing that again. So I need to seal that off before the winter comes.
So do you use that as work? Like, do you work out there, or how do you?
Yeah. Especially just recently, I spray painted some stuff out there, and I didn't have to breathe it in here, you know. Yeah, I'd like to build a fire and just have a jazz quartet come through and just play out there some night.
That'd be very cool.
It'd be fun. I may do it on my 80th birthday. Just clean everything out, have a party.
And talking about parties, on how it's the relationship of your neighbors and people you know around with this house.
This
Do
is
they
a
get
church
here?
next door. The minister and I are in very good relations. You know, he does not live in the community, but they have service every Wednesday evening and every other Sunday. He's part of a bigger congregation, so I think what's happening is on the other Sunday they're at the bigger congregation. Good relationship. His father had it. I remember his father when his father passed away, and he then moved into the senior pastorship of the church. This woman here, her name is Miss Cotton. Very good relationship. She's been here much longer than I have. She'd probably be interesting to. Lynn Cotton is her name. I'll give you her number to interview. Lynn is pleased with all the art we do out here. So I have a good relationship with her. And then that's Miss Cotton. And then next to Mrs. Cotton, I forget her name. Her name is Cheryl. Cheryl has a daughter that washes dishes in bakery. On nights of farmer market, her grandchildren wait tables out here. Stephanie, the baker, does signature pizzas. So they run the pizzas from the kitchen out to the people, you know.
Oh, cool.
And then the people tip them, and that's how they make a few bucks for themselves. So they live there, and I have a decent relationship with them. people that live across the alley, right in that house there. Krista worked here in Dave's Bakery. When I first came in, she was a junior in high school. She worked that all that year. When she became a senior in high school, she worked there part-time and got a job at Menards way out on Highway 41. And then she went off to college. So I have a decent relationship with them. And then back across 33rd Street, you have that auto repair shop right there on the corner. And then you have that vacant house, empty house next to it. And I love that house, even though Dave has walked to it and he says drug addicts and whatever have come through there and just tore the kitchen out and got, it's just a shell, which is okay. I mean, if you got a creative mind and you want to do some fun things with space and etc., but you got to also have the dollars. But the house next to it is the house where this woman lived since 1975. She just passed. So there's no talking with her. And yeah, that's a kind of a full circle in terms of my neighbors. I have what I would consider a very decent relationship with all of them. Of course, O&G is my neighbor. Express Yourself is my neighbor. Autumn West is our new neighbor, and they had a woman there. Autumn West takes in homeless and people who are challenged, And I had a woman there who I almost think she was the woman who did this to my window. Because last August, she was threatening everybody up and down, Lisbon, and she had become just the talk of the neighborhood, and so last winter, I'm out here shoveling snow. Wait, in September, let's back up in August, my car, the front windshield, somebody had stepped up on it and kicked the windshield in. So I had to go get that repaired. And I parked it out on front, and the next morning there was this sign under my windshield. I know who you are. We know you come from Illinois. You need to go back home. And I'm saying, who wrote this? And I thought nothing of it. Okay. So November comes and that happens. I don't know. And then January,
Didn't you get scared?
Did what?
Get scared.
I didn't. That's a whole nother spiritual thing we can talk about at another. But January comes, okay? And big snow, and I'm out there shoveling the snow, and this woman walks up to me and says, I thought I told you to leave. I've told you to leave. I've got my people. And I just went off. You broke my, and she lived in Autumn West here, okay? I didn't. Yes, you did. Well, you can come to the office. Yeah, wow. So we both walk back to the office, and they take her away, and they take me down, and they says, Muneer, please, just bear with us. We're trying to find her another space. I says, okay. So I walk out, and that's the last, within a week she was gone, But that's Autumn West, and that's the kind of, they have, those are transient people. They allow them to stay in there for 1 year. They assist them with their meds. They assist them with managing the dollars that they have coming in with the intent of having them leave there and living on their own. They have other facilities as well, So that in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. I used to sit on the board of Our Next Generation. I'm not a board person. I've sat on 3 boards, and it took 3 boards for me to sit down to realize I'm not a board person. They have grand ideas, and when they start talking finances, it's like, whew, whew, all this language just goes right over my head, and it makes you feel inadequate. I'm a board member. I'm supposed to understand all this stuff. I don't, So you just start to, Then I got on the progressive board, and the same thing, So I says, I'm wasting my time. This is really not my calling. So I left both of those boards. And a frustrating thing about that is I have really come into this philosophy, if you're going to change the community, you got to be in it. Everybody at Progressive, everybody at ONG, come to this place. In the South, back in the 40s and the 30s and the 20s, when African Americans were really struggling with open, fair housing, they were forced to live within their own communities. As a result of that, you had black doctors, black teachers, black lawyers living right next to you. And you get out and you start, you better drop that, you better pick that back up, you better, you know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking, if all these high-powered people, with all these great cars coming in here and these great incomes, if they lived next door, or if they just lived down the street, we wouldn't have these problems. They would not tolerate it. So they would, with their power, they could probably call in police or get politicians to get this done, make sure these street lights stay on, make sure this trash is picked up in alleys. Because when we do it as common community people, it's we got to do it, we got to do it again, we got to do it again, we got to do it. It gets done, But when I say people with influence and power come down in here and live amongst us and become a part of this, that's when you're going to see the change. That's when you're going to see the change. And unfortunately, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. And I understand that, I think I said earlier, you have people who grew up here and all they are thinking about is getting out. And I understand that, But the truth of the matter is they get out and the upwardly mobile move back in. And all of a sudden they want back in. And they ain't got the dollars to do it because the upwardly mobile have come in, have done this, have put this enormous price because they invested those dollars in it and they want the return on their dollar, And it has nothing to do with race, or it's about, hey, this is strictly business. I put 48,000, blah blah blah, and you said I could get 52. Well, I won my 52. No, I don't care if he wants to come in. Nah. This is what the contract said. I'd put in 48, I'd get 52, So, I mean, that's what, I'm really simplifying this thing, but that's what businessmen talk about, and their percentage or whatever, And the common person kind of loses out. Poverty is it's just a big part of the equation of our struggle here. Yeah. Is that it?
Well, what's your you have a certificate of commendation up there? Where's that from?
I was given a commission to work on the Marquette Interchange project. So I did these ceramic tiles along with 3 other artists. We teamed up and submitted a design concept, and when they dedicated the bridge, the the governor wasn't there, but when the governor can't be there, they send a rep. I forgot who it was, but they sent somebody, but the mayor was there, and that was in recognition for the artistic public work.
Very cool. Thank you for all your information that you gave us. Is there anything we didn't ask about that?
I would like to ask one more
okay.
question. On being honest and through all your experience and everything you've seen and all the people you know around here and all the time you spend here, what do you think is going to happen to this neighborhood, to this community in like 10 years, maybe 20 years?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
do you think it's going to get?
It could get. It depends on who you're asking. If you're asking once again the upwardly mobile, who are looking for investment, it's going to get better. Okay, because the model is basically the same. They're going to come in, they're going to buy this piece, they're going to buy this piece, and they're going to eventually have this whole block of land. They're going to move people out because they have now found the legalese language to do that, combined with dollars to do that. People are going to come in because the trend right now is young people living in the suburbs who want to experience inner city Milwaukee. It's a drag to be they get blasted in the bars and things, and they don't want to take 94 back, drive 94 back home, to Oconomowoc or wherever. So they're looking for places to live, okay? You got a lot of structures downtown, mixed use, that are not filled up yet because those developers see this trend coming. That's going to extend to here. At some point, there was this move in New York several years back. New Yorkers who were there, artists, etc., were really getting tired of that cosmopolitan life and started moving out. That's going to happen here. Chicago people are going to start moving here, and they're going to take these neighborhoods. Well, I guess in a nutshell, we're talking regentrification here. Gentrification, that's going to happen. I don't know when, 8 years or so. But if we, as a community and concerned citizens, even if it does happen, maybe there's a way we can say, hey, it's going to happen. But let's see how we can work this so that you get what you want, I get what I want. Win-win. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if they're going to get developers who say, no, it's my dollar, it's my decision, I'm calling all the shots. Or I don't know if I'd be able to be allowed to sit at that table. I know it's your dollars and your shot, but will you consider? That's all I can come to the table with. Not unless I can come to the table with dollars and legislation.
One thing that might be of interest to you is last semester I worked on a project in Walker's Point about trying to combat gentrification and keeping because they're another artisan sort of space, and keeping that sort of feel. And we created a handbook of different techniques that people have used all throughout the country and the world, of ways to combat gentrification, because they knew it was going to happen, but still, letting it happen while maintaining that. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
Can you get your hands on that?
Yeah,
I would. I would be interested in it. But a lot of times developers come in with this scorched earth kind of approach, just scrape everything off, and just rebuild. And there's to the behest of, they don't even realize it, their own ancestry. I mean, when you look at the history of a lot of these houses and the way now the world is, there's a great possibility that you're connected to somebody who may have lived in a house down here. You know what I'm saying? And business people don't know how to look at that as currency. They don't know how to look at spirituality as currency. And they don't allow that variable into the equation, So right now you have West End, I think that's doing exactly what is going to happen. That's Marquette, that's Harley Davidson, Miller, and they're going to 35th, 27th, from Highland all the way to Valit, and they've stopped just before they get to Lisbon for whatever reason, I don't know. But all that's getting ready to be flipped and changed. And they're doing everything right. They're having the vignettes, and they're having when the charrettes, bringing in the community and getting the input. But they're bringing in the community and getting the input to tweak what they've already decided, and so when I walk down the street, I can see the banner that says, yes, Muneer decided to, and here it is, but it's already been planned. It's already on the drawing board. They've already put their dollars in. So when Miller and Harley and Aurora and Marquette put dollars in, they can take that a massive amount of money and go to the federal government and leverage that for bigger dollars, So those are the kinds of things with respect to what you were asking, I see happening, within the next 10 years, yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It was really interesting, and it's really important to see through other perspectives. Things we wouldn't know, we wouldn't have any other way besides living here.
So what do you do from here with this?
Oh, the numbers. Mrs. Cotton.
Well, we will be collecting additional interviews this week, and then we're going to focus on gathering historical information on the buildings that we measured, our house, and then another.
Are you measuring another house?
We already
We
measured
did.
one other house, 3710 Lisbon.
3710. Okay, that's past 35th. This side of the street?
Yes.
Yeah, 10, because this is the even side, so it would be this side. Past the health center?
It is it's right across from the restaurant supply.
Yeah. Okay, kind of a modern structure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's David's structure too. David Boucher, yeah.
So we're there, and then we have to we're in charge of finding additional people to interview, and then we're doing historical research, and then eventually we're going to put together documentaries in a couple of different formats. The information will go out, and then we'll have a presentation at the end of the class.
Okay, the people who, across the street, of course, is Autumn West Residence Living. And then there's that blue house next to it. I don't know those people, but we just respectfully speak to each other every day. They've been here very long too. I wouldn't recommend approaching them only because I don't know them.
Okay.
You know, but I bet you there's a wealth of knowledge in them.
We could try to talk to Mrs. Cotton and share it. Or do you have the numbers?
Oh, didn't I give you Miss Cotton's number?
No.
Okay.
No, we got distracted and onto other.
I don't have Cheryl's number, but if you talk with Miss Cotton,
She has it.
yeah, she could probably give it to you. Ooh, I don't have it in here. Oh, here it is. Lynn, Lynn Cotton, 412-3560. 412-3560. And of course it's 414, but it's 412-3560.
I'm gonna call them too. See if they can.
Is there anybody else in the neighborhood that in the immediate area that you would recommend reaching out to?
You might try back over here. This is the house of, first of all, there's this lot next to me. Across the alley, there's that next big lot. And then the first house north. That's the house of, what was her name? Who worked in the bakery?
Is that Krista?
Krista's, yeah. Krista is no longer there. She's moved out. She may have graduated from college this spring. But her parents are there. I very seldom see them. They both work for the MPS, the Milwaukee Public School System. He's a building engineer. She's a cook in one of the schools. So there, you know what I'm saying? And you have a lot, interestingly enough, you have a lot of solid people like that in this community, you know. I just, unfortunately, tend to be a bit myopic. It's like Lisbon. That's all I want. Lisbon. Let's just Lisbon. But
All of us. It's just a habit.
yeah.
The years.
Would Express Yourself Milwaukee would they be somebody that you would recommend reaching out to talk to? Or?
Yes, you might want to talk with Daisy. It's 272-3498. Daisy Bowman. Daisy is the co-director of the organization. Very creative group. Very committed to their work.
Oh, your little art space over there. What I forgot to ask you about that while we were doing the interview.
That's a collaboration with me and Express Yourself.
How did that come into being?
Well, that one summer they were fortunate enough to get a grant to do a summer camp. So we brought in kids and we photographed them in different poses. And then one of the staff took the pictures and put them in Photoshop where they got the high contrast. Then we purchased lumber and put these colored backgrounds. These are out here almost 5 years now. So we just heavily painted them. Now they're starting to warp as a result of the years of winter. But they painted those colors on, and then they projected the image. The kids came in and traced, and then painted them in black. And then they have members of a construction company, a major construction company, on their board, who came in with big equipment and set the posts. And we were then able to we had a jig so that they set the post accurately. We were then able to take the panels and set them in place and screw them on. And yeah, that was a collaboration with Express Yourself. And we got an award and a recognition, and the mayor said that anybody in the city who want, and this is city property, that Express Yourself is responsible for as long as they want to have it. But they have to keep the grass and shovel the snow. And the mayor said something to the effect that if anybody wants to do a lot, they need to come see this. They're using this as the model. Yeah. And that, once again, is the creative work of Daisy Bauman, who, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.